In this video, I'll be talking about Power Platform licensing guide, and out of that, I'm going to talk about Power App specific licensing. Now, this is a URL to navigate to a documentation which Microsoft has provided with regards to licensing. So it contains a licensing guide for entire Power Platform suite of products. But I'll be more specifically talking about Power Apps licensing. Now, if you want to get a PDF document from Microsoft site, you can go into this link and then you can download that PDF document. In this document, they have mentioned about how the applications, how the flows, how the co-pilots are licensed within the Microsoft Power Platform ecosystem. Now, from a Power Apps licensing perspective, now if you navigate to make.powerapps portal, and if you are inside any app or if you are in that make.powerapps interface, and if you click on plan, when you click on the settings icon on the top right, you will find some sort of licenses assigned to you. Now, these are the different screenshot taken from different tenants. Now, there are different flavors of licenses which are available from a Power Apps perspective. So, the one which comes with Office 365. So, you have something called as Power Apps for Office 365. Now, imagine a scenario whereby you just have Office 365, you don't have anything else. So, you get a license of Power Apps for Office 365. Now, I'm going to cover each and everything, but just to give you a glimpse of what are the different flavors of licenses which comes with Power Apps. Now, there is something called as Power Apps Community, which is for the community. It's free, so depending on your need, like if you just are using it for your own fun projects or hobby projects, and if you're not selling it commercially, then yes, go for this community licenses. Then as you see over here, I have Power Apps per user plan as well. Okay, so Power Apps per user plan, Power Apps for Office 365, Power Apps Community. Then there is something called as Power Apps for Dynamics 365. Okay, so if you have a Dynamics 365 subscription, then you get Power Apps usage licenses. And again, this Power Apps usage license compared to Power Apps usage licenses when you have just have Office 365 are a bit different, and you get different benefits depending on what type of licenses you have. And then there are other things as well. So this is not just limited to four items which I see in the screen, but there are other things as well. So just to list down from a Power Automate perspective, now same goes with Power Automate. Now once you have Power Automate within your system, you have Power Automate for Office 365, Power Automate for Dynamics 365, then there is Power Automate free, then Power Automate for CCI bots, Power Automate for Office 365, and so on and so forth, right? Like, and then there is Power Automate for Project Shimla. So you have these different flavors which are available in terms of licensing, and sometimes you may get confused with what are these different kind of licenses. I'm not going to cover specifically Power Automate, but this is just to give you a glimpse of different types of licensing which are available as a part of the Power Platform ecosystem. Now, from a Power Apps licensing perspective, you have different listed licenses over here. So, first is Power Apps Premium, with which you get everything. Okay, so with Power Apps Premium, you can access a lot of things. I'm going to cover all these details in the upcoming slide, but this is like the top level SKU, I'd say, from a Power Apps perspective. Then you have Power Apps per app, so which is only applicable for one app. Then we have Power Apps per app, but then this is metered. It is somewhat linked to the Azure billing. Then you have Power Apps use right with Dynamics 365 license. So you just have Dynamics 365 within your environment, and you get this Power Apps use right to use with Dynamics 365. And the last, Power Apps Basic, which you get with Microsoft 365 and Office 365 licenses, right? Okay, so let's go into each and everything. So Power Apps Premium. Now, what it is a user-based license. Is one license for user, and you can run unlimited custom apps. So if you have, say, 50 apps within your organization, and if you don't want to run that with this license, yes, you can go ahead and run with it. Also, you can access unlimited Power Pages website. So if you have, say, 15 Power Pages website within your environment, you can run with this specific license. Power Apps per app. So as the name indicate, you can only run per app. Okay, so and this is per user per app license. You can run one custom app or one Power Pages website. Now remember, this is specific to an environment. Okay, so if you have multiple Power Pages site, you cannot access it. You have just have an ability to access just one custom app or one Power Pages website. This is useful for the user just getting to understand or adopt Power Platform environment. So, take for example, if in your organization, if you are a user and if you are pretty much new to this Power Platform ecosystem, then it is wise to get a Power Apps per app and understand what does that app do. And then, depending on your scenario, if you think like you can build more apps, or if you think like there is a need for consuming more app within your organization, then you need to go with a premium plan. But Power Apps per app is just for the starter. Okay. Individual license need to be allocated to a specific environment and assigned to individual users. So this is like if you assign this particular license, it has to be allocated at a specific environment level, which I'm going to show you once I start with the actual demonstration. The This license can be assigned to individual users, and these licenses are sold at a tenant level capacity. So one is at a user level capacity, and then as a tenant level capacity. This is also I'm going to show you where to configure this within your environment. Then there is something called as Power Apps per app, pay as you go meter. So that means this license is like it will run one custom app as per the name. Okay, Power Apps per app. So it will run only one custom app. There is no license commitment. Now, the difference between Power Apps per app and Power Apps per app pay as you go meter is that in Power Apps per app, it's kind of like a live billing, like depending on your requirement, depending on your need, and depending on your billing cycle, you get to access the environment. So you need not purchase it upfront. With what happens with Power Apps per app is like even if you use or do not use the app, you will have to pay the money. But with this, it is only on a consumption basis. Now, it runs one custom app, there's no licensing commitment, there's no upfront purchasing. Pay as you go plan basically includes database storage capacity. Basically, you get a one time entitlement of 1 gig database and 1 gig file capacity per environment. This provides a flexibility to pay for additional storage if required. So you can buy additional storage if required. It also reduces the overhead of license procurement. So you need not go through that entire life cycle of license management, that you need to have an access to a specific environment, or if you need to use a specific environment to run the app. So this reduces that complete overhead of procurement of licenses, because depending on your need, you can just link your Azure subscription, and then from that point onwards, you can start utilizing Power Apps depending on your need. Now, the use case, what is the use case? It's basically mostly used for widely distributed app. Now, what does that mean is like, so take for example, if in your organization you have 10,000 users, and if you have build an app, and then you want to distribute it to say all the company. Now, not necessarily everyone will going to use it, right? So you need not reserve 10,000 licenses for 10,000 users. So what you can do is like for such kind of app which is globally distributed across your organization, and you don't know how many users are going to use it. It all depends on if the user clicks on the link and access the app. So then Power Apps per app pay as you go meter licensing is the best option for you. So it is mainly for the large user base, and for an infrequent and unpredictable use. So we don't know when the user is going to use, how they are going to use, and how frequent it will be. Meter definition. Now, how do you define a meter? Meter basically it means measure of number of unique active users who open this app. Okay, so if you have an app which is configured for Power Apps per app pay as you go meter, then you qualify for that particular meter counting. Okay, so in a month, if you access it like one or more times in a month, it is the count is counted as one. Okay, so that means you can access it n number of times in a month, but then the denominator factor is a month. Okay, now, the only disadvantage with this is like you can't leverage managed environment benefits. Now, managed environments, I have covered that in a separate video, so it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of, and you get a lot of feature set within managed environment, which you cannot leverage with this particular licensing. So, if you want to know more about that, just search for managed environment within my channel, and then you can have the feature set listed for that specific managed environment. Now, Power Apps use right with Dynamics 365. So, take for example, if you do not have any Power Apps licenses, but you have bought Dynamics 365 license like sales, marketing, or field service, or any other Dynamics 365 SKU, you get a Power Apps use right. Now, this is only provided for users to customize and extend the Dynamics 365 applications. Usage must be within the context of the same environment. So you cannot have one environment which has Dynamics 365 license, and if you are using another environment with, say, Power Apps without having Power Apps license. So it is specific to a same environment, and it should be used within the context of that, because you're getting this license because you have bought Dynamics 365 license along with it. Now, use rights vary by Dynamics 365 licensing type. Okay, so if you have like a kind of pro license, you can do some action within your environment. So with a pro license, you can only create 15 custom table per app. So if you're building an app and if there is a need to build a custom table, then you can create 15 custom table per app. So this is the benefit you get from a pro license if you have a Dynamics pro license. Now, no database file capacity is granted for this particular usage. Okay, so if you want something, you need to buy this separately. So that's the difference between Power Apps use right with Dynamics 365 license. Power Apps Basic. Now, this is about which, say, if you have just Microsoft 365 Office 365 within your environment, and if you want to use Power Apps, so you get something called as Power Apps Basic. Now, the benefit of utilizing this particular licensing SKU is like if you're very new to the organization, if you've never touched Power Apps, Power Automate, or any other Power related feature, then this is the best SKU to just get started with the environment and then start exploring. And also, this is used to customize and extend Microsoft 365 and Office 365 for productivity scenarios. So, take for example, if you have a SharePoint site, and within that SharePoint site, you have a document library or list, and you want to, say, create a flow out of it, and that flow which you create through that linkages, it uses a standard connector and it just sends out an email. Okay, so for such scenarios, yes, this is good. But then when your scenario becomes more complicated, like if you want to use or consume some premium connectors like Dataverse or say SAP or any other, say ServiceNow or Salesforce, then you may need to think beyond that. Okay, so you cannot directly use Power Apps Basic. It will just give you a jump start on customizing Power Apps, Power Automate, but then after that you may need to say subscribe for the higher tier licenses. Now, this comes with a Dataverse, but this is for Dataverse for Teams access only. So it's like kind of a limited or a subset of the Dataverse environment. You cannot use premium or custom connectors with it. You cannot create custom table. There's no Dataverse file capacity granted. And again, from the previous slide, you cannot leverage manage environment benefit as well. So this is how the SKUs are structured. Now, in the documentation which I showed you, Microsoft has given you a clear description of all the type. Okay, so the first one is a Power Apps Premium. Then we have Power Apps per app, Power Apps per app meter, Power Apps which comes with Dynamics 365 Pro and Enterprise license, and then you get use rights with Microsoft 365 and Office 365 license. So as I mentioned to you, this is the top tier. With this, you can run unlimited apps, you can run unlimited website. However, with Power Apps per app, you can only run one app or one website. And with Power Apps per app meter, you just run one app. And if you want to do it for another app, you need to buy, and basically it will get built for other applications as well. Okay. Now with Dynamics 365, remember it has to be the same environment as licensed D365 application. Now, there's no mentioning of running custom websites in this particular SKU. You can run workflows within the custom app, so you can run throughout the SKUs, so that's not a problem. Service credit for utilizing AI Builder you get only with Power Apps Premium and Power Apps per app, so you get 500 and 250 credits respectively. Uh, Standard connectors can be used across the SKUs. Premium and custom connectors you can use, but then you cannot use that in the basic, but then you can use in other SKUs here listed. And then there are other things like you get a Dataverse database capacity and Dataverse data file capacity in premium and Power App per app. Okay, but for the other SKUs, you may need to buy an additional capacity. Okay, so this is how you basically compare. Okay, so there's a nice comparison given in that documentation. You can have a read through that. Okay, when I say Power Apps per app metered application, then that subscription needs to be connected to Microsoft Azure. So how do we do that? So you need to navigate to Power Platform Admin Center, navigate to the policies, go to the billing policy, and create a billing policy. But remember, in order to do that, you need to have an Azure subscription predefined. Okay, so once you have the Azure subscription predefined within your tenant, it will automatically show up over here, and then you actually specify for which environment you need to connect that billing policy, and then that's it. Once that is done, your user can consume it. But there is another thing which you need to take care, is that once you configure the pay as you go billing, you need to actually specify which app. Okay, either it can be a Canvas app or it can be a model driven app. Now in that Canvas app and model driven app, a specific app, you need to configure the setup pay as you go. So here, whatever billing policy you have configured, you just need to specify that I want to use this billing policy, and then from that point onwards, that particular the user who's consuming that license, and if the user does not have a license, then it will be automatically used in the pay as you go scheme. Then, if you want to buy a capacity and allocate that capacity, then you need to navigate to Power Platform Admin Center. Under Resources Capacity, you can navigate to App Passes and Flow per Business Use Process, and then you can grant access to the Power Apps and Flow which has been consumed within your organization. In this section, you can also allocate Power Pages capacity, authenticated anonymous capacity, AI builders credit, etc. in the screen. M365 Admin Center, if you want to buy something, navigate to M365 Admin Center under billing purchases and then search for business apps or Power Platform related SKUs. And then from here, you can actually subscribe to this particular uh, licenses. Now, let me show you an action. So first thing which I showed you is over here. So this is the URL to access the licensing guide. So once you go into this URL, you click on this licensing guide, and then once that licensing guide opens up, this is basically a licensing guide. It is last updated August 2024. Now here, Microsoft has clearly given you everything what you need to know for Power Apps, Power Automate, Copilot Studio, Power Pages, AI Builder, Dataverse. Go through the section. If you have any doubts, again revisit this section, because I read this document once, twice, thrice, and then I completely understood like what is the what exactly those different license SKUs are. So in at the start, Microsoft has given you a nice summary of what kind of licenses regards to Power Platform exists in terms of Power Apps, Power Automate, Copilot Studio, and Power Pages. And then for a Power Automate RPA based scenario, that's a different SKUs available. So it's bit complex at start, but then once you start understanding how things work, it is completely simplified in this documentation. So for a pay as you go meter, you have a Power Apps per app meter, Power Pages authenticated anonymous user meter, Dataverse database capacity meter, file capacity meter, and log capacity meter. So even from a capacity perspective, you can have those environment connected to Azure billing. And then if you just go through each and everything, like this is summary of Power Apps, and then this is summary of Power Automate, summary of Copilot Studio, summary of Power Pages, and then within each of the SKUs. So for Power Apps, a complete description on what does this different SKUs stand for and how you can utilize this. Okay, so there are what you can use, what you cannot use. All this are clearly mentioned in this documentation, and this is the slide which I just showed you, which gives you a complete, comprehensive comparison of different SKUs. So that's about documentation. Once you go into the Power Apps, take for example, if you log into make.powerapps.com within your environment. Now here, if you click on the clock icon, if you click on the plans, you will see what kind of licenses you have. Now in this particular tenant, I have Power Apps Community, Power Apps Community, Power Apps per user plan trial. You may have a different license. Okay, so if you want to know what kind of license is attached to that tenant, this is the way to click and just find out. Similarly, if you go to Power Automate, you can click on this clock icon, and here you just specify view my licenses, and then here you will get to know what kind of licenses you have and what does the capabilities basically which gets enabled once you have these particular licenses. So I do not have a right to run premium connectors or custom connector for this environment. Okay, but I can do AI builder, business process flows, on-prem connectors. Okay, so this is how you understand what kind of licenses you have. Also, if you want to buy a license, you can navigate to Microsoft 365 Admin Center, click on Purchase Services, and then from here, this is like kind of a selection. Like you select Power Platform, you select Business Apps, and then once it is selected, you just type in, say, Power App. Now, I'm just filtering based on Power Apps queue. So if you search that, then multiple options will be shown, like Power Apps per app, Power Apps Premium, Power Automate per user plan. And depending on your need, you can just go ahead and buy the licenses. Okay, so from a Power Platform Admin Center perspective, now here, if you, how do you connect your, say, tenant with the policies for billing? So under policies, click on billing policies, and from here you can create a new billing policy. So I'll just say Azure billing policy for ABC tenant. Okay, and here once you type in, you just need to be in a specific range. So I'll just say Azure billing must be alphanumeric and between 10 and 64 characters. So let me just remove this raise, and then Azure. So you just need to specify your Azure billing policy name, and then once you have that billing policy name, you just specify what kind of environment you want to bill it to. Now, I do not have currently any policies listed because I do not have any Azure subscription. But then once you specify that, you can connect to your environment. But make sure that you have that environment connected before you create a billing policy. Now, from a Power Platform Admin Center perspective, there is another section called as resources capacity. Now, once you go into resources capacity, here there is something called as add-ons. Once you click on add-on, you need to specify which environment. So if I pick up Girish Preview US environment, then if I buy some passes, then I can grant this to the users. Okay, accessing Power Apps and Flow, and even I can assign capacity so that people can use business process flow. And same thing I can do with Power Pages anonymous and authenticated capacity. Now, for a Power App, so if you're using Power Apps per app license, then how do you assign a pay as you go subscription? Is like, say, this is one example. So this is a Canvas app. So this is a Canvas app which I've created. If I just navigate to settings, so if I click on settings over here, I will be navigated to app settings. Now from here I can specify the pay as you go billing. So if I um, have the pay as you go billing policy set up, I will be shown uh, the drop down, and then I can select, and then I can just connect this with Azure subscription. Similarly, if you navigate to model driven app, so this is one example of model driven app. Again, if I go into settings, here I can again configure pay as you go billing. So there is an option directly to set up pay as you go, which will again take you to that same environment settings. So I can just specify what kind of pay as you go subscription I want. I'll click on next, and then it will ask you to select the Azure subscription and the resource group. Now I do not have any subscription uh, in this particular tenant, so I'm not able to see that. But in your case, if it is there, then this particular app will be then connected to your Azure subscription. So from that point onwards, you can configure the pay as you go metering. So these are the different ways through which you can connect Power Apps for Microsoft Azure billing. So depending on your SKU, if you have Power Apps Premium, you need not go through this entire process. If you have Power Apps Pay as you go billing, then you need to do this particular configuration. However, if you have Power Apps per app, then that's a different SKU. It is handled at an app level. So there are different combinations of licensing. Some are licensed at a tenant level, some are licensed at a app level, some are licensed at an Azure pay as you go metering level. So these are the different types of various variants of Power Apps licensing. Now, again, if you just have Microsoft 365 subscription and you do not have any Power Apps license, you can use Power Apps usage rights for Microsoft 365, and similar you can use Dynamics 365 usage right if you have just have Dynamics 365 within your environment. But then again, with limited cache, you will be able to do some limited things within the context of that environment and within the context of that application only. So that's it, folks. This is all about licensing for Microsoft Power Apps. Thanks for watching.